In today's iLights, we find Paul's attempt at healing the cutoff that characterized his relationship with the Corinthian church. His words make up our keep in mind verse for today, which read, "Receive us. We have wronged no man. We have corrupted no man. We have defrauded no man." 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 2. In 49 AD, Emperor Claudius expelled all Jews from Rome. Under the expulsion order, Aquila and his wife Priscilla traveled to Corinth. In the same year, while in Corinth, Paul met Aquila and Priscilla, who shared his profession of making tents and working with leather. Aquila and Priscilla were prominent and affluent members of the Corinthian church. They apparently owned a large house capable of accommodating a church, and might have been prosperous enough to have been able to lease a building large enough to serve as both their home and a shop. The passage brings to light that the relationship between Paul and the believers at Corinth was strained. With deep longing to resolve the conflict, Paul wrote, "Make room for us in your hearts." Being a Christian is never a private matter. While our faith is absolutely personal, it is also absolutely communal. The greatest tragedy for a Christian would be to be a spectator who neglects the opportunity to use his or her spiritual gift for the Lord. The greatest tragedy for a non-Christian would be to not hear about or recognize the opportunity to receive the grace of God. Only together in Christian community can we form the type of complementary work that guides us into the larger and fully lived life that we always have the opportunity to enter into. This is called the ministry of reconciliation. We cannot ever invalidate the work of God, but people can affect the Lord's reputation and soil how ministry is understood. Paul's charge to fellow Christians was that the world should have no reason to question the authenticity of the good news if we live up to our God-given potential. Faith is never passive, even when we are resting in the Lord. Our task isn't to try to do good things as much as to surrender our lives and let Him work through us. Spiritual disciplines, such as practicing your faith or studying the Bible, open the doorway to a deeper relationship with God. In every situation, the choice remains: honor God or walk away from Him when things become tough. It's the same choice we have today, to let hard times define or refine us. It is possible to hold someone accountable without condemning them. Our ministry on earth is never to be the voice of God, but to help others hear His voice. No matter how many problems Christians may have with each other, we are ultimately bound to bring out the best in one another by revealing Christ and how we regard each other. Here's our lesson. In seeking reconciliation with the Corinthian church, Paul followed the divine model of reconciliation. In wanting to reestablish the relationship with the fallen world, the Father did not spare any effort. He sent His own Son to put into effect His ministry of reconciliation, with Jesus as the medium. With His own body, Jesus brought God and humanity closer together, and in His own body, Jesus mingled both divine and human nature. How might we learn from Paul when handling conflict? Rather than high-handedly dealing with the church at Corinth, Paul chose to lovingly rebuke them and call them to action. This approach disarms others when handling matters as sensitive as those Paul addressed at Corinth. How do we handle these types of conflict? Loving rebuke or unloving condemnation? May we remember that the first step of reconciling with God is reconciliation with one another. Next time on iLights, we'll study the lesson, "A Community Shares Its Resources," from 2 Corinthians chapter 8. If you had any questions about today's lesson, email us at fbcbsundayschool@gmail.com. And if you're in Bridgeville, feel free to stop into our Sunday school, 9:30 a.m. Sunday mornings. Until then, may the peace of God, which passes all understanding, keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Grace and peace to you. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for subscribing. See you the next time on iLights.